So just in case I throw out like a, something like this, you never know what I'm going to do.
Okay,
Just to
great.
keep it. Hey, welcome to the continuing winemaker series here at the Wine of the Month Club, and very honored to have with us today Cheryl Francis. And I don't know if you call yourself A to Z Winery or Rex Hill or both or everything.
All of the above. A to Z Wineworks and Rex Hill Winery. That's what we have in front of you today.
All the way down from Oregon, and we had a chance to taste through these wines, and they're gorgeous. And we also got to discuss some of the latest. Well, it's not even the latest because it's been around for a long time. Farming techniques called biodynamics here, and we've discussed this before. But we didn't discuss sort of your own career. How did you get in this business in the first place?
I grew up here in Los Angeles, so moved up to Oregon in the late '80s to go to university. I went to Lewis and Clark College. I studied biology, which natural segue, wine.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to Spain, traveled a little bit, decided I wanted to get into wine. Fast forward a few years, was in the Willamette Valley, back again, knocked on every door, and finally somebody gave me a job in a lab, so I started there and started making wine in Oregon. Spent some time in New Zealand, back to Oregon, New Zealand, then France, and have been with A to Z, or we started A to Z Wineworks in 2002 with a 2001 vintage, and we purchased Rex Hill about 11 years ago.
So in Spain, did you work in the wine business there?
I didn't. That's when I decided I wanted to do something I loved every day of my life.
Wow,
because
that's great.
A college student taking care of kids, being an au pair, not fun.
Well, because I brought up when we were talking about Dan Barber's book about biodynamic farming and food. He goes to Spain to the Dehesa, and he's looking at the Iberian pigs.
Yeah.
And he talks about how they ate the acorns and the whole climate that the whole micro environment that goes on there, and how amazing the meat is because of that.
Exactly, the pata negra.
Because you are what you eats, right?
Exactly. And it's funny, we looked at bringing pigs when we first got into biodynamics in the late 90s, and when we planted our vineyard, well, as I said earlier, we were actually doing a fair bit of studying biodynamics and putting on sprays and doing that before we ever planted this site. It was an old filbert orchard.
Really?
The trees were pulled out, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, so we started planting different trees, and we brought in cows, and we had our chickens, and we had the small farm going, and pigs were a big thing because I lived in Spain, my husband lived in France, and everybody loves jamon.
Yeah, right, of course.
So we were always wondering why you couldn't do that. We even tried to make our own hams. It didn't work out well.
So filberts are either peanuts or hazelnuts?
Hazelnuts.
Okay, so hazelnuts, wouldn't the pigs eat the hazelnut? That'd be good. That'd
exactly.
be really good.
So we looked at bringing in pigs and going through all this and talking to people in the middle of the country that have their own versions of the pata negras.
Crazy.
And,
That's crazy.
It was a sidetrack we didn't take. We started A to Z instead.
Okay. which based on the quantities and the volumes you're making, it sounds like a good decision.
Yes, it was.
So you guys speak French in the house? Do you speak Spanish or English?
I speak Spanish pretty much every day. My
Really?
kids, some of them do, some of them don't.
That's cool.
But yeah.
But your husband grew up in France? He grew up in France?
No, he didn't grow up. He grew up
he worked.
in San Francisco. He's also my business partner, and he worked in Burgundy, or actually paths crossed in Burgundy. He left a few weeks before I started making wine in Burgundy.
So how does that work, though? Because you met my wife downstairs, and she's there.
Yeah, we can have that conversation. Couples in business, yeah.
It's okay, because she's a CPA and she watches every dime, and I don't do that at all. So
yeah, we're both winemakers. That's the good segue of.
So A to Z.
He makes red wines, I make white wines.
Oh, there you have
it.
That's great. That's a great compliment.
We commingle the reds sometimes for.
All right, so A to Z, your brainchild, so to speak. I don't like that term actually, but you started. The first vintage was 2002 or 2001.
So 2001 vintage, and it was bottled in 2002. So A to Z Wineworks started as a partnership between Bill and Deb Hatcher and my husband Sam Tannehill and myself, and we wanted to bring something into the world that was an under $20 Pinot. 2001 was a great vintage. It was pretty prolific. A lot of people had a lot of wine in their cellars. So we thought it was a great opportunity when we were growing up our little teeny tiny brands to do something fun and under $20. So we made about 3,000 cases of a blend in 2001. Since then, it's the biggest selling Pinot Noir. Sorry, I keep talking about that one. Biggest selling Pinot Noir out of Oregon. It's been the best Pinot Noir under $20, probably 3 to 4 years.
How about the rosé?
The rosé, sorry. So
This
that's
is
all
Pinot,
about the
This is
Pinot.
100% Pinot?
No, this is actually rosé came later to the story. So sorry, I said this earlier. What we don't have here is our white wines, which are Pinot Gris. We make a fair bit of that. We make some Chardonnay, and we make
'Cause this is
rosé.
gorgeous. The nose is like boom. I mean, you get, and we taste a lot of rosé here, and clearly the color of this is
Yeah, the color is pretty
beyond the provincial, from the Provence type wines. So that's coming from a
Yeah.
skin maceration, some kind of skin
Color is
contact.
pretty distinctive. It is majority of Sangiovese and Big Reds. It is sort of a purpose-built rosé. It's not a saignée of a Pinot tank. It's
Yes.
none of that. It's not. We don't make other Big Reds. So we bring this in. We soak it for a number of days. We put it in a roto fermenter for 3 to 4 days. We extract a lot of color. Looks like a deep dark red wine. We press it off and we ferment it with some aromatic yeasts, and we end up with this.
Are you using natural yeast there, or are you using? That's another trend in sort of the whole. Not, I suppose that's part of the biodynamic part of this, but you can choose to do that anyway, right? Whether you're conventionally farmed or not, you
Yeah,
can choose to use natural yeast or add some, or a little
we
of
do
both.
use commercial yeast for that. We have a handful of commercial yeasts we've used year after year. We love the aromatics. We love the punch it gives. At this point, you have so much natural yeast in the winery. I wonder if the commercial yeast we're putting in does anything, or if it's all around the
They say
winery.
that the natural yeast tend to overpower the commercial yeast.
Well,
Not that I've never even worked in the winery, and I'm saying this stuff.
there are a lot of schools of thought of whether or not yeast that comes in on the grapes actually can finish
Can do-
a fermentation and are really the yeasts that are fermenting wines. But the yeasts that are living in the winery are a different story. And so those are pretty much
Wow,
everywhere, even
that's
though you're
interesting.
sanitizing tanks and you're doing
Yes,
all of that.
so now this is the blockbuster, the one
Mm-hmm.
that set A to Z on the map, and it's a gorgeous version of Oregon Pinot Noir. And you see some of the grapes are from Willamette.
Yep, it's from the Rogue, the Umpqua, the Willamette Valley. We have a handful of vineyards all over the states, a lot of great growers we work with. This is, like I said, Oregon's top-selling Pinot Noir, under $20. Top-selling Pinot Noir and under $20.
And under $20, right? Which, that's hard to come by, particularly in the days after, what's that stupid movie that touted Pinot Noir and crushed Merlot, Sideways.
Sideways.
I mean, after that, there was a serious shortage of Pinot Noir in this place.
Yep. We always have funny stories of back in that time. It was right when we started with Gris and we started with Pinot Noir, and you had to, lead with your Gris and
Right,
say,
yes.
oh, we also have Pinot, and people were like, okay, you can't take any more Gris unless
Yeah.
you take some more Pinot. So pretty
Block
quickly
booking,
after
yes.
Sideways, that flipped, and you couldn't keep the Pinot in the door. And then you had to explain Pinot Gris a little bit more. So yeah, this is our flagship wine.
We'll be right back. We have 44 seconds.
Okay.